So let's go way back on this Monday morning ahead of game number 5 tonight in the 2024 NBA Finals. It's a weird thing when you have a daily show each and every day of the week, but nothing over the weekend. So Donnie and I look back all the way on Friday evening in game number 4 of the NBA Finals in Dallas. It was not a game we necessarily expected or the outcome we believed would play out. But the Celtics always lay at least one dud, and there it was in game number 4. The Mavericks victorious in that fourth game against Boston, 122-84, nearly a 40-point home margin in favor of the Mavs, who closed as an ever so slight home underdog, minus 112 money line for the Celtics, minus 104 on the other side for the Mavericks. Even if we believe, Donnie, that Dallas would give Boston a good test, finally in this NBA Finals set, even if we believe the Mavericks could edge out the Celtics to win their first game of this championship series, I don't think we expected it to be by 38 points.
No, I didn't expect that. And I also thought the Boston Celtics were going to win that game and close out the NBA Finals just based on what I've seen for the previous 3 games. And that wasn't the case right off the bat because you did get that good scenario once again. Hey, look at that. Dallas with a double-digit lead in the first quarter. This time they were able to make it stick. Instead of just having a meandering end of the first quarter and an even second quarter, they won that first quarter 34-21, second quarter 27-24, and it was a wrap from there on out. Basically just a party in Dallas saying, could we actually now go to Boston and possibly force a game number 6? And what did you like out of the Boston Celtics this game? Absolutely nothing. Jason Tatum, I thought, was in line for a big game. 27 minutes, 15 points. Jaylen Brown, 27 minutes, 10 total points. They're the guys that you're supposed to lean on in these big moments to close out a game and win an NBA championship. And they weren't ready at that point. Now, granted, 3-1 series lead. Do we still think the Boston Celtics, Ben, are going to lose that? Absolutely not. But I was just disappointed because sometimes you lose in a hard-fought effort, right? Mavericks 105, Celtics 104. Oh, no, we were so close to it. They didn't even compete in this as almost like they're like, you know what? It'd be so cool to win Boston. Let's just see what happens in the first half. And we saw quickly what happened in the first half. It was Kyrie, it was Luka dominating, and the Celtics were nowhere to be found.
DRS, we often say things here on this show for the sake of content to maybe build narratives that we don't believe the actual athletes, the organizations, the coaching staffs really take into mind. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to win it in front of the crowd inside TD Garden to hoist championship banner number 18, the most ever in the history of the association at home? But then you expect the actual players to be like, nah, we're going to try to win a basketball game to win a championship. We're not going to fall into the pedigree of getting the duck boats fired up already as soon as we win. But then we look at the game and we say, well, if the Celtics are trailing by double digits early in the opening half, might Joe Mazzulla just pack it up? And again, we don't really think that's going to be the reality. And then it happens because that's exactly what happened. The Celtics down by 13 at the end of the first quarter, lost the second quarter by 13 as well. That Boston dud was there in the effort and anything that we anticipated in game number 4. The first time in this series, a team scores more than 110 points. It's the Dallas Mavericks. And in only 64 total minutes, 31 for Kyrie, 33 for Luka Doncic, those two guys combined to score 50. Nobody else, because of the blowout manner of game number 4, really did much. But Kyrie Irving scoring 21 and Luka Doncic adding in 29. Still neither guy, because of blowout theory, went over a points prop in game number 4.
And still stayed under the total here, which is impressive with the Dallas Mavericks scoring 122 points. But just didn't like it. Like, you're supposed to have that, and I understand this by saying, the preface is always, the Celtics are going to win this series. I get it. But you just wanted to see that, like, you know, I'm going to step on your neck right here in this game, right off the bat, to not even give you any life, because if that first quarter was 34-21 Boston, I'm not so sure we got that much fight out of Dallas. Like, why are we even trying at this point? They obviously have our number, but that wasn't the case. And if you just leave that door open and you say to yourself, a team that's down 0-3, let's just get one and see where it goes. Now you go to Boston. There is absolutely no pressure on the Dallas Mavericks. All the pressure will be once again on the Boston Celtics to close them out, because if you do allow the Dallas Mavericks to win in Boston, that means you are setting yourself up, no doubt about it, Ben, for a game number 7. In a game 7, anything can happen at this point. Now, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, because I do think the Boston Celtics will win the game, because quite frankly, they're what a favorite, 6.5, 7 points right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. They're supposed to do that. But the way they got beat down here, maybe it sends some ramifications, or as I like to say, you take a look at Joe Mazzulla and he goes, you know what, guys? We had fun first 3 games. We won. Lost that game number 4. Got a little cavalier out there in the court. Let's rein this back in. Let's hit the film room. Let's get after it. Let's clinch this bad boy in Boston on Monday. We'll see if that happens, but you can't take anything away from the Mavericks. You love the fight of a champion here. You could have very easily said, we're not going back to Boston. Why even waste our time? It's over at this point. They fought hard and got a big victory. Let's see if they can make it 2 in a row now.
So I think it's very natural to look at the outcome of game number 4 in a 38-point difference and say to ourselves, is there any carryover? Is there any hangover because of how bad the blowout was in favor of the Mavericks? If Dallas eked out their first victory 104-101 in a tightly contested game, we'd say, okay, the Mavericks were an NBA championship caliber team, but Boston is going to win this easily in game 5. Is that the natural assumption for tonight? We will preview tonight's 5th game inside TD Garden in just a moment, because now we look at the series outright, minus 3,500. Still the number in favor of the C's, but they were minus 8,000 entering game 4. We said it repeatedly on Friday. Here we go again on Monday. This is the 157th all-time NBA postseason series in a best of 7, where a team has held a 3-0 series lead. In the previous 156, including both of the conference finals that we saw in that round, the team that was up 3-0 has won all 156 series. Only 12 times in NBA playoff history in this scenario has a team even won 2 straight games to force a game 6. That is what the Mavericks are trying to accomplish tonight.
Yeah, and it's going to be hard to do because, again, we don't even have a premise of saying, like, oh, look at this. 3 out of the last 4 years, we had a team come back from 0-3. It's never happened in the NBA. And also the reason that you get down 0-3 is probably because you're not as good as a basketball team as the other team. And also, when you go back to your childhood days, so anybody that played baseball, grade school, 2nd, 3rd grade, you're down 8 runs by the 3rd inning. What did your coach used to tell you? Hey, guys, they got 8. We can get 8 just as easily. Now, that's not really the case, because the reason they got 8 is because you're a bad baseball team at this point here. So some of that foundation has to be on the Mavericks, where it's like, let's go out tonight, but also let's put this key ingredient. We're going to talk about player props a little bit later in the show. The nice Kyrie Irving that showed up in games 1 and games 2 in Boston, Ben, didn't work out in his favor. Now you sort of got that fire lit under him in games 3 and 4 where he's being assertive. Let's see if nice Kyrie turns into mean Kyrie in Boston tonight. That's something I want to watch here, but certainly buying it on Dallas 14-1, don't love that. Obviously minus 3,500 on Boston, don't necessarily love that. And even if you're saying, let's just get it to 6 games, go back in Dallas, it's still a minus 270 hurdle you got to get through in game number 5 just to get to game number 6. So it's tough betting in that respect.
Donnie, I think you made this point last week, and I think it was incredibly sound. If there was any hope for Dallas to win a game in game number 4, the number to bet was a plus 180 price on the Celtics in 5, because the Celtics were going to be at least a 6.5 point favorite for game number 5. And that's where the odds are right now. Boston to win this series in 5 games, minus 270. A little bit of change in the money line, so it's minus 260 for the specific game 5 odds for tonight. But that's where it is. Again, I think our most interesting conversation is NBA Finals MVP. Tatum scored 15 on Friday, Brown only 10, and yet Jaylen Brown still greater than a $2 favorite to win Finals MVP. There's your number once more on Jason Tatum ahead of tonight.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you got to take shots. One of the Jason Tatum to win the MVP on Friday got hammered, but if they win, I expect a big performance out of Jason Tatum. I like the plus money on that. I just do.
And now it's a crowning achievement inside TD Garden in Boston. We'll look at game number 5 tonight of the 2024 NBA Finals up next.
minus 2.5 games, plus 330. Panthers 2+ goals in every game, plus 225.
It's going to take a monumental effort for them not to get 2 goals in a game. It's going to take what Bobrovsky did last night. It's going to take Skinner to do in Edmonton. They're not going to do it in Florida.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back, too. I guess this... Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Game number 5 tonight inside TD Garden between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. The C's back home in Beantown, just needing one more win for championship number 18, the most ever in the history of the National Basketball Association, and they can do it in front of the home crowd tonight in Boston. The Mavericks trying to accomplish something we've only ever seen 12 times out of 156. That's 156 times a team has been up 3-0 in a best-of-7 series, and a team like Dallas is trying to do has won 2 straight games to force a Game 6. Is the NBA season over tonight? Will an NBA champion be crowned in Boston, the home team, the Celtics, or will Dallas send us back to the Lone Star State later this week? It's a 6.5-point spread, the updated numbers on the FanDuel Sportsbook. And for the first time, DRS, in this series, a total that is sub 210, 209 and a hook, because all 4 of the games so far have stayed under.
Yeah, and I'm looking at that under 209.5 price once again, how I liked it on Friday. But again, if you would have told me 122 points by the Dallas Mavericks, man, that thing went way over, and it didn't because of the blowout nature of that atmosphere. And blowouts usually kill everything. Props, point structures, all that stuff. But if we are taking a look at the game in the Garden tonight, yes, we probably aren't going back to Dallas. Why? The odds makers are telling us that. -6.5 with a money line here for Boston at a -260 price. But if we get inside the numbers at the FanDuel Sportsbook, Ben, take a look at this. Spread percentage here, 51% on Boston. We basically got 50-50 betting action this with slightly more money coming in on Boston at 63%. That's very interesting because the one thing we do know is the Dallas Mavericks should be able to hang around. But the question is going to be how much of what we saw in game number 4 is going to translate here into game number 5, which means that the Boston Celtics didn't play well. Was their head actually in it? It's tough to question that because anytime the championship trophy is in the building for you to win and you come up lame, like 40 points lame, that's kind of rough here. It's almost as if it was like, hey, it'd be really cool once again if we won this at home. So I'm trying to take a look at that 6.5 and say to myself, is there a legitimate chance that you think the Dallas Mavericks can win this basketball game? Because what's the anticipation? Yes, Kyrie's going to have to go nuts. Yes, Luka Doncic is going to have to go nuts, but at the same time, Boston, can they have a meltdown on their home court with all the pressure on them once again? I don't think that's going to happen, but I got to tell you right now, if you're saying, Donnie, which would you like to bet more, the side or the total in this game? It's probably the total for me.
And which way would you go? Under, because it is yet another series clincher and elimination game? Because I would agree with you, Donnie. The conversation for the Mavs entering Game 4, could they get to 100? They had not reached the century mark so far in the first 3 games of this NBA championship series. They scored the most points a team has scored in any of the 4 games of the 2024 NBA Finals. The first time anybody has gotten to 110 or over, 122 is what Dallas scored on Friday. Now, it is interesting from the handicapping perspective when you reach a 38-point blowout in blowout theory. How does it go for the spread? Well, it was just a 1-point spread in favor of Boston, very close on the money line. The Mavs went outright as an underdog, or that total that was 210 and a hook and does stay under. All 4 games have stayed under, all 4 previous totals north of 210. I've said this a few times. That was game number 13 throughout this postseason run for the Mavericks that has seen a total at higher than 210, 11 of 13 under. Listen, it's only by the hook, but it is 209.5 tonight. Now let's talk about the individuals. We showed you the odds. Jaylen Brown, still a hefty favorite to win NBA Finals MVP at minus 230, despite Tatum outscoring Brown in each of the 2 games that we saw in Dallas. Does Game 4 really mean anything? No, not so much. But Jason Tatum, still 3 points higher in his points prop tonight, 27 and a hook. 24.5 for Jaylen Brown. Brown minus 230 to win NBA Finals MVP. Jason Tatum plus 200 to an NBA Finals MVP. I still think that's your best bet for Boston tonight.
I don't know. I still can't wrap my head around what's actually taking place in the awards market. Like, why is it that far off? Like, why isn't it plus 100 apiece at this point? Because they're both not playing exceptionally great basketball, but they're both in the same realm, points, rebounds, and assists with each other. To have somebody at a minus 230 price when you know, and also, it probably should be Tatum at that minus 230 price, because when you look towards the Celtics, and forget about just the series itself, the length of how long Tatum and Brown have been in that lineup together, usually the alpha dog is Jason Tatum, and then you see Jaylen Brown pick up the scraps. Now, we're not disparaging him by any means. Pick up the scraps meaning like, yeah, I can go for 27 tonight at any given point. But we do know this team starts and ends typically with Jason Tatum, not Jaylen Brown. So also, if you had the first 4 games, like, well, what do you want? Like, Brown's averaging 37 and 7 every single game. Yes, he should be a minus 230 favorite, but he's not doing that. So I still can't wrap my head around this structure. And also, what changed from game 4 to game number 5, which lessened those odds between the two? Because they were both bad in there. You just say, oh, I'm just going to bring them down a little bit lower. Shouldn't the odds have gone even higher up for Jaylen Brown at that point? I don't get it. I just don't.
15 points for Jason Tatum, only 10 for Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, Game 4 has no semblance on this series. We have said this before. Game 1, MVP, Kristaps Porzingis. I understand Jaylen Brown was Boston's leading scorer by a bucket, but it was still game KP. Game 2, it was Drew Holiday. Game 3, Tatum scored 31. Jaylen Brown had a better plus-minus 38 and 8. Maybe you give him the edge, but it's a toss-up. Game 4, the Celtics MVP was the guy driving the plane back to Boston. I mean, it just makes no sense what the odds are right now. On the other side, we know the story for Dallas. Their duo has to be supremely better if they are going to force a Game 6 and stave off elimination. Again, 32.5, the number 4 Luka Doncic. And nice guy Kyrie Irving needs to tear off the mask and put on the old one. Bring the Sage back. 23.5, his points prop for Game 5 tonight in Boston.
Yeah, you know what? It's always the question I like to ask, and we'll get Coach on a little bit later. Like, which guy would you rather trust? The Kyrie Irving 23.5 or the Luka Doncic 32.5? And I always look at the true superstars saying, you know what? If we're going to lose, it's because I stunk. 10 of 30 from the floor. I just couldn't get my 32.5 points for Luka Doncic. I would be interested to see what his usage rate actually looks tonight. But for me, give me Luka. Even though he needs 33 on the road,
for sure.
I'll probably still go that route.
Or D, all of the above. Both guys need to be over if Boston is not going to win an NBA championship tonight. We weren't sure we were going to have this final half hour of hour number 2 on this Monday. Would we have the coach, James Young, JY, on to look back on an NBA season and crown an NBA champ? We certainly were not sure we'd be able to preview another game in the 2024 NBA Finals. But after Dallas wins by 38 in Game 4 on Friday, we're not done yet. JY, thank you for being here on this Monday morning on the Early Line on SportsGrid.
Listen, just like Ben Taylor and Scott Foster, JY the Extender said we'll be back on Monday, and we're here today. Good morning, guys.
Good morning to you, JY. Hope the Father's Day was fantastic, and we are glad to have you here on this Monday. So before we preview game number 5, let's look back on game number 4, 122-84. The Mavericks win their first game of the 2024 NBA Finals, becoming the first team in this series to score more than 110. They scored 122. JY, maybe Dallas was going to win game 4 and stave off elimination and keep this series alive. It was just a 1-point spread in favor of the Celtics. 8 cents of difference only in the money line. Minus 112 for Boston, minus 104 for Dallas. In what we expected to be a competitive game, we did not expect nearly a 40-point margin. What was the reason for such a blowout in game number 4?
Let's be honest, a couple of things. Number one, Porzingis not being there, I just think is just, I don't think people understand the impact that he has offensively and defensively. We talked about it on Friday with the fact of no KP. You have driving lanes. And now if you are Boston, you have to pick how you guard a guy like Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. The crazy thing about the 40-point win is those two combined to shoot 1 of 14 from the floor. So they still haven't really gone off yet in this series. But I think the other thing is this, man, we talked about it. Plus 20 some odd points every game, Boston was winning at the 3-point line, the ultimate equalizer in the NBA. We finally got Dallas to be even, if not a +3 at the 3-point line, which allowed them to also, when they dominate inside, the 3-point shot can't be offset by it. So I thought the 3-point line shooting was huge. Also, getting Luka and Kyrie, we always talk about this, I always say this first side, second side of the floor action where you can't load up. I know they didn't shoot the ball well from 3, but those two giving you 22 points in the first quarter, Ben, they jumped on their backs early. And let's be honest, about midway through the third quarter, Joe Mazzulla just punted and said, I'll see you Monday night.
Yeah, it was almost like his starting lineup punted that game before it even began, because that was a runaway effort right away from the Mavericks here, which would be interesting to see that tone set in quarter number 1 tonight that we check out. But let's take a look here overall in the series betting prices here, because Boston still a heavy favorite for us, Coach, minus 3,500. If you're looking to take Dallas, that's a 14-1 price as an underdog, just looking to extend that series. Are there any, now granted, it's easy to say, well, yeah, let's just take Dallas at minus 3,500. The question more likely is going to be, are you digging into that price of 14-1 with Dallas, or is that just fool's gold right now?
It's fool's gold. I mean, the best way to do it, Don, if you want it, play it game by game. Just take Dallas on the money line tonight. They win, roll it into game 6, and then roll it into game 7. I wouldn't be touching it. I think it's a sucker's bet. You know, if you want to go ahead and take Boston minus the 3,500, sure. I mean, they're going to win the series, but why lock in your money with all of that? You might as well play some props or play things a different way. Maybe take Boston minus a point tonight, or just on a money line tonight, or overall. So I don't like the whole thing of trying to just try and hit the home run. A little baseball reference. It's not bad, JY. Trying to hit the home run with the 14-1. Just hit a couple of singles and make your money that way.
Pretty common expression to hit a home run, but still applaud you for doing so here. Yeah. Boston in 5 games in terms of the series odds is minus 270. It will be updated minus 260. That's the current money line entering game number 5 between the Celtics and the Mavericks tonight. And we'll dive deeper inside TD Garden tonight for this 5th game of the 2024 NBA Finals. But my question, JY, more about the series outlook overall. Again, game 4, Dallas, a slight, very slight home underdog. The Mavericks had a chance to win a game, and they did. I don't think anybody expected it be by nearly 40 points, that 38-point margin. In the way that game 4 ended, with the outcome being decided by 38 points, is there any carryover from that entering game 5 tonight?
For Dallas, just confidence that you played well. And I wouldn't even look at the fact that we're up by 38. I would just look at the fact, 1-3. I would just say we won wire to wire. right? We were the better team for the entirety of the game, even in the first half when Joe Mazzulla didn't punt. So to me, that's where you look at. If you're Boston, it's the flush it game. They came out, they played well. We didn't really adjust. We didn't really throw our cards out there, and we're rolling back home. So to me, there's more for Dallas to take out of it, but they can't take out of it as, oh, we won by 38. We're going to roll into Boston and win big. It's more like, well, we finally, defended better. We guarded the three-point line better. We continue to get Derek Lively involved and active, and there is a pathway to win Game 5 if we rinse and repeat it. Now, there's no way in hell if Dallas wins, it's going to be a 38-point game. I would be floored if Dallas won by more than 10 points if they won tonight. I think it's going to be a close game. So to me, you could flush it if you're Joe Mazzulla, but you take the positives, Ben, of what happened if you're Dallas and Jason Kidd and try and say, hey, there is a carryover effect for that into game number 5 tonight.
Let me ask you this question, Coach, as we take a look at game number 5, and this is the final game of the NBA Finals. Usually when your best player gets to the free throw line in your home arena, what do they chant? MVP. MVP. Now, the question is going to be, which chant and which actual cash structure is that going to float on? Jaylen Brown's a minus 230 price. Tatum's plus 220. Coach, I don't understand where these numbers are coming from by a long shot right now. Why is Jaylen Brown still a heavy favorite over Jason Tatum to win this award?
And it's amazing, but if you look at it, Donnie, it's been going down. I think it was minus 270 earlier in the weekend. Yeah. So it is coming back because people are realizing he's jumping on Tatum. Simply put, the only reason why is because Jaylen Brown is shooting the ball better from the floor than Jason Tatum. Assists, Tatum. Rebounds, Tatum, right? It's also that Jaylen Brown is shooting the ball better. I still think if they win it, I think Jason Tatum's going to have a big night. Whether they win or lose tonight, I expect him to be really great. He was tough the first 2 games of the series. He's been much better. I know he didn't play the minutes in game 4. I expect a big game out of Jason Tatum. I like him to be MVP at plus 220 because you figure this, he's going to probably get a double-double. Like, let's call it what it is. It's can he get 7-8 assists tonight as well if they win, and he's going to score the points. I can see a little bit of regression in Jaylen Brown. Hey, at the end of the day, this is the chosen one, Jason Tatum, for so many years. So many times he's come up small in these moments. This could be the night that he stamps himself, if they win, with a huge game number 5.
And it is the narrative and storyline component of it all. Because Boston was blown out in game number 4, the silver lining, the redeeming quality was going back to TD Garden, trying to win the NBA Finals for championship number 18 in front of the Beantown faithful. And maybe because this core will have its success only to find in the hunt for a Larry O'Brien trophy, the crowning achievement being inside TD Garden in Boston, that can propel the legend of Jason Tatum. Plus 220, his number to win the NBA Finals MVP, minus 230 for Jaylen Brown. Third best price. It's the same exact number for Luka Doncic at 14-1 as it is for the Dallas Mavericks as a team to win an NBA championship at 14-1 as well. Those are the stakes entering game number 5 tonight. Boston 1 win away from championship number 18, the most ever in the history of the association. The Mavericks trying to win 2 straight games, enforce a game 6, which has not often happened in the 156 previous times in NBA playoff history. A team has held a 3-0 series lead in a best of 7. JY breaks down game number 5 tonight inside TD Garden. Up next. Maybe those mics were hot and you just heard Donnie Rightside scream out, anything is possible, like Kevin Garnett did the last time the Boston Celtics won an NBA championship back in 2008. So what is possible tonight? Boston with a victory, wins championship number 18. It's first in over 15 years, but it's 18th all-time, the most ever in the history of the NBA. Or maybe it's possible the Dallas Mavericks win 2 straight games and force a game number 6 in the 2024 NBA Finals. JY, Boston back in Beantown, a 6.5-point favorite with the total working its way down for the first time this series under 210 to 209 and a hook. Let's approach this from Boston's perspective. First, Then we'll get to the Mavs. If you are the Celtics, who just got routed by 38 on Friday night, what's the number one thing the C's have to change?
I just shoot the ball better. Let's be honest. It was their worst shooting performance of the series. They didn't shoot, I think, 36 or so percent. So to me, it's just that. I just think weather the storm, because if I'm Jason Kidd, I'm coming out guns blazing, which we'll get into what I mean with that with Kyrie and Luka. But I'm looking at, if you remember on Friday, we talked about this. I was so big in first quarter points. I think we took Tatum, we talked about Luka, and we talked Kyrie. All three of them to go over the points prop. Right now, Jason Tatum's points prop in the first quarter is at 7.5 at plus 106 on FanDuel. I think you got to get this guy going early because of his ability to not only score guys, but also to facilitate. He's become not just a secondary ball handler, but the primary distributor. So if you put the ball in Jason Tatum's hands and let him create and get to the basket and score, you also could set up Jason Tatum to pass the ball out to other people. Squarely looking at it right now, Jason Tatum over 7.5 points in the first quarter tonight. He should be coming out firing.
Taking a look at some of those other Celtics prop bets here, the points for the game. You got Jason Tatum, 27.5. You take a look at Jaylen Brown, 24.5. Derek White at 15.5. We understand the point of premise here is like, you know what? Home court, let's keep the crowd into it. Let's win this first quarter by 5 to 7 points. That should help go a long way. But are we looking at, again, those MVP markets, which we pointed out, the favorite there obviously is Brown. Are you saying tonight that it's more of a Tatum night for you or more of a Brown night for you when it's all said and done?
I think it's a Tatum night. I really think this is a Jason Tatum night, and this is where legacies are born, right? And every time this guy stepped up in a big spot, he has not, I wouldn't say come through, but he's come up a little bit small. Let's be honest here. So I do like a big game out of Jason Tatum tonight, and that's why I like him to hit the double-double market. And obviously, if you want to go PRA, I think they're going to put the ball in his hands because he's shown it, guys, that if you do take him away, he's more than willing to kind of get other guys involved. So I think that becomes really important. Another sneaky thing to look at is Derek Lively's now minus 360 to lead the series in total rebounds. Tatum is down by 6. If I think Porzingis plays, which we don't, but just to put it out there, right. Tatum at 6-1 could be worthy. If Lively gets into foul trouble, you're going to get at least 10 rebounds out of Jason Tatum tonight. Maybe you get 12. That's a sneaky good bet at Jason Tatum at 6-1 to lead the series in total rebounds.
Certainly worth a sprinkle to feel at this point of the NBA Finals that there's plus money options on Jason Tatum and what might be the final game of these finals is a very interesting component. Just compare the props as you look at the NBA Finals MVP odds. Jason Tatum has a higher points prop, rebounding prop, assist prop, and three-point prop than Jaylen Brown, and yet is the underdog to win the NBA Finals MVP award. That makes 0 sense to me. So that's the Boston component of this all JY. Now to the Dallas perspective. We asked you, how does Dallas carry over the success of winning by nearly 40 in Game 4-2 tonight? Will it be another blowout? More than likely, no. But you take the positives and what you did well to win your first game into Boston tonight, where it has not been great for the Mavs. They got blown out by nearly 20 in Game 1. They lost in Game number 2 as well. What's the main thing Dallas has to change from the opening 2 games in Beantown to Game number 5 tonight inside TD Garden?
Kyrie's just got to be a lot better than what he's been in Boston. I mean, the guy's 0-12 since he stomped the Leprechaun at half court. Hopefully, he probably should burn some sage around the Leprechaun and do kumbaya and whatever kind of peace offering he needs, because that Leprechaun is all up in his head where he's in Boston. But interesting enough, it was 4.5 first quarter points in Game 3. Smashed it. They moved it up to 5.5 plus money. Smashed it. Now it's back down to over 4.5 points at minus 138. Simply put, if Dallas is going to win, or let's be honest, man, stay competitive, Kyrie Irving must come out aggressive, looking for his shot. Over 4.5 points at minus 138. I would go run to that. That's 5 points. It's a 3 and a 2. He can get that pretty easily, along with Luka Doncic. If you look at the fact that his is at over 9.5 at minus 132. So those two, they're basically saying 13, 14 points. Well, they gave you 22 in game number 4. And they're going to take the bulk of the shots. But also, folks, the first quarter is a good time to get props early in and out of the way because of the fact that the substitution patterns should be normal, meaning Luka and Kyrie should play anywhere between 10 to all 12 minutes of the first quarter, especially if that game is close. I like them both to go over their points prop tonight.
How about the NBA Finals Series correct score odds here? Obviously 4-1, that will be a Celtics win at a minus 270 price. 4-2 also would be a Celtics win at a plus 550 price. 4-3 for the Celtics is 7-1. 4-3 for the Mavericks is 14-1. In your estimation, is the series done tonight, or is there be some money to be made if we can get to a 6 or a 7, Coach?
Donnie, this may be my only crazy wild take of the day. I'm sticking to it. Dallas wins tonight. This is going 6. I just think maybe the Juju Beans, the Kyrie Irving, there's something in there in the air. I don't know what I'm smelling, but it must smell good because I smell Dallas in an upset tonight, and we're going to come back. Maybe it's because I want to come back and do a couple of more shows with you guys before the NBA draft to talk to NBA Finals.
Listen, we need a guy to break down the NBA draft. We need your take on the WNBA as well that we'll get to in just a moment. Dallas entering this series was 6-1 straight up and against the spread as a dog throughout the playoffs, but they have not covered as an underdog just yet.